Hey everybody. So when our office gets a call and people are inquiring about the inspection services we offer, we often go over some of the optional systems or ancillary services. And one of them is the irrigation system, or commonly known as the sprinkler system. And for a lot of people, they've had an irrigation system before, they've had a sprinkler system, so they kind of get what that entails. But sometimes people are maybe moving into their first home, or they've only lived in apartments and they're like, irrigation, what is that all about? So today's video, we're going to kind of show you what it is we're looking at when we add on the optional irrigation system portion of the inspection, and what we're writing up, and what you should see. So anyways, join us for this video and we'll check it out. So where does the irrigation inspection start? It's going to be right out here near the water meter. This is our water meter box. It has the city water meter. And this next box here, that is the backflow preventer. Now, backflow preventer is this device right here. It may look familiar, but that is basically one of the primary main required devices as part of the sprinkler irrigation system inspection. This is essentially our safety device that prevents us from having a potential cross-contamination of water between contaminated water and our city supply water coming into the house. Now, the way these devices work is their internal components allow them to have water pass through in one direction only, but does not let the water go back in the reverse direction, whether that be to a sudden pressure drop in the water line or for whatever reason that may be. Now in this case, this one we're looking at here, we're going to note a couple of things in the inspection report. One, clearance around that device. There should be enough clearance around that device that you can service, maintain, repair the device without heavy excavation, or if that device is in contact with the soil all the time, especially when we have a lot of rain, it's going to cause advanced deterioration or rust. You can see we've got some of that rust here on these shutoff valves for the device. So over time, those are going to rust and deteriorate, and they're just going to become useless. One of the next things we're looking at, and that we actually write as a deficiency on our report, are these guys right here. So these are referred to as test cocks, and those allow you to bleed the system out, whether you're winterizing it, shutting it down. But those test cocks have little non-ferrous caps that are required to be at the ends of those to prevent dirt and debris from kind of getting into those openings. And this one right here doesn't have those test cock caps, so we're going to write those up and note that they're missing on this backflow preventer. Now, one of the devices that we like to see, and it's required on all new installations now, is just before that backflow preventer box, there should be a valve, essentially a shutoff valve, and that's known as the isolation valve. Now, it wasn't always required in older systems such as this. This house is in 1996, but we still make note of it because it's not unlikely that if this client were to have any irrigation system work done on this system, that company may tell them, hey, we've got to put that in because it's a required device now. So we want to let them know ahead of time. Another device out here at the backflow preventer that if we don't see, we make a note, but that is a master valve. And essentially a master valve comes after the backflow preventer, and any zone that you're trying to operate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will only operate so long as the master valve is also open. And this was a device that was implemented because it helps save a lot of wasted water from leaks. If we had a leak in, let's say, zone 2's piping, but it was before the zone 2 solenoid valve, it'll just leak and leak and leak and leak and leak. But with the master valve in place, if that master valve's not open, that pipe won't leak. So it will only leak when that zone is in operation, or any of the other zones. So again, if we don't see it on older systems, it's not necessarily deficiency, but we kind of make note of it, FYI, for older systems. So the next device we're looking at for our sprinkler system inspection is this guy. This is a rain sensor device. And this device, you can see the wire coming off there. That runs back to the irrigation system control panel. And if wired properly and installed properly, when it rains, water will come in to the top of this device here. And there's a series, depending on the kind you have, there's a series of cardboard discs that are in there. And when the water goes in, those discs will expand and they will force a kind of like a little plunger to make a connection, which then sends the signal down the wire to the control panel and tells the system, hey, we've got enough moisture, we don't need any more, and it will shut the system down and prevent it from operating until those discs dry out. Now, they often have an adjustment on there, so you can select, say, a 1/4 inch of rain, an 1/8 of inch of rain. I'll tell you, they don't always work perfectly, but we do need to see that device in place and make sure it's part of the system that we're inspecting. Unfortunately, these devices don't always work, and we try our best to determine if they do. Sometimes they have a little, you can push down on the plunger to kind of manually test it. Our standards of practice actually tell us that we're not required to verify the effectiveness of these devices, but we do need to make sure they're in place and that there's no physical damage to them, to the wiring, to the control panel, and so on. Okay, so I just noticed this home actually has another rain sensor device here. It's not installed, but this is an example of a newer rain sensor device. Basically, it's a remote device. And this is what you mount on the outside of the home. This is where the water collection is. And it sends a signal to this receiver box, which is wired into the control panel. This is a newer version, like I said. You have a few more options as far as settings. So you might see something like that when conducting your initial assessment of the irrigation system. The last main component that we're looking for this irrigation system inspection is typically going to be here in the garage. It might also be on the exterior side of the house, but this is our control panel. So this is where, basically, this is kind of the brains of the system. All of our zone wiring, it runs through this conduit, and it's all wired in to this panel. This allows us to program our system so that we can select the days we want our system to run, what zones we want to run, and for how long we want them to run. So it's fully customizable, and you can set it kind of to the requirements for your system. So as we take a closer look at this system, it actually looks like it's got 7 zones wired. So we're going to compare that with what we see operating during our test. Okay, so before we fire the system up, one thing I really like to know to my inspectors, and something I've always liked to do, is I like to take a picture of this control panel before I manipulate any of the controls or do anything. And the reason is because you get into the inspection, especially on a system that's got 20 zones, and by the time you're done and you're walking around and you're wet and you're tired, you might forget what they had it on. Was it on? Was it on off? So we always like to take a picture, shows the status before we touch anything, so we can always set it back. So let's get this system fired up, and we'll go check out some spray heads and drip lines. All right, so the way we're gonna operate this system, it's pretty simple. We're just gonna simply hold down manual start or advance. And that's gonna give us kind of a countdown. We can adjust that down. I like to do about a minute, maybe 2, if I'm trying to track some more things. And we're gonna let that guy ride. Okay, so you can see we got spray heads running out. This is zone 1, and we've identified how many zones it is, so we can kind of keep track as we go around and count the zones, and that way we can make a determination of where the damaged heads might be that we see based on where we're at. Here comes zone 2. Okay, so one of the limitations we sometimes have is heavy vegetation. So you can see we've got zone 1 running, and this is the beds all the way around the house. I can hear a spray head back there spraying on these leaves, but I can't see it. So we'll note that limitation in the report just to let our clients know, hey, we're not going to be able to see every single head when we got them buried like this. So as we're checking these heads on this particular zone, you can kind of see that head is not really spraying kind of in a fan array. It's not spraying out, it's kind of shooting out one direction. So those are some of the things we're going to point out in the inspection report. So as an example, this head, good spray pattern. As a result, good coverage. This head, poor spray pattern and highly inadequate coverage, especially in this corner. So on this zone, we've got the heads popping up. We've got a couple more out there, and you can see they're spraying, but their coverage just isn't typical. And it's reduced flow is kind of the initial observation. And when we see that, that is most often indicative of a leak in this particular zone. So after you let a zone like this run for a while, and again, this head's just not popping up fully, it just doesn't have the flow or pressure it typically does, you kind of look around. And eventually, if there's a leak, you'll start to see water bubbling up somewhere. In this case, we didn't have to look far. This head's broken off. So you can see we just have a kind of well, it's actually in there, but there's something wrong with it. So it's not spraying out, and we're losing more water here than we should, thereby reducing the flow and pressure on the other heads of this zone. So we'll note that as a damaged head or a leak in this zone. So that pretty much wraps up our inspection of this irrigation system. So again, kind of to recap, some of the main components that we're looking out for during this inspection include the backflow preventer, the isolation valve, the rain sensor device, the spray heads, drip lines, bubblers, basically emitters across the board. Anything that puts water out, we're checking those. We're looking for proper coverage, leaking pipes, leaking heads, damaged heads, broken lines, basically anything that's not functioning as it should be. We're going to make note of it. Now, when we report on these, we have our standards of practice that we have to follow, and that's going to kind of guide us as to what we have to write up as a deficiency. Again, master valves missing on older systems, not really in our SOP as a deficiency, but we're going to make a note of it for our clients just to let them know, hey, this is an improvement you can make. Or if their irrigation technician highly advises it at a later date, they've kind of already heard about it and they're aware of it. There's probably some more things that we could have covered on this system, but we wanted to give you a quick rundown and to just kind of let you know what's involved in checking out that irrigation system. And by the way, if you want to know more or learn more about the specifics of the irrigation system and its requirements, go to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Their website has a lot of great information regarding residential irrigation systems. So again, thanks for joining us. Keep an eye out for more videos, and let us know if there's something about the home inspection process or an ancillary service that you're not really familiar with. We'll make a video about it. All right, take care.